Welcome to another episode of Ignite, the podcast. Today, my special guest, man, this guy owns the credit and business funding area, the space. Nobody else does it the way he does it. Everybody else is just wannabes. This guy is the real deal. And look, I'm very thankful that you actually made it out, bro. I know you had to fly in, so thank
Absolutely.
you, Will. Roundtree.
Man, look, this is like a lifelong goal to get to sit and build with Diego.
Let's go.
Man, come on, let's go, man.
Yeah,
I
man.
made it.
And you know, it's crazy that we met at well, let's first kind of talk a little bit about who you are, where you
Definitely.
came from. You know, I know you've traveled and kind of moved around a bit, but you know, where you're originally from. Did you come from riches? You know, I want to know the underdog story, brother.
Oh man, I came from the bottom. You know, originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Was born in a typical Midwestern blue collar family. Both my parents worked. Sometimes my mother worked 2 jobs. And back then we would be what you would pretty much be considered middle class, but we lived lower class because they made enough just so we could afford the bare minimums. I mean, I used to wear hand-me-downs. I wore my parents' clothes to school. Like my mom used to have to hem the pants that she gave me because they were either her old pants or my dad's old pants. If I wanted a nice pair of sneakers, I would ask my cousins who had the Nikes and all of that stuff. But if my parents, primarily if my mother bought me shoes, we went to the shoe barn and you went in a bucket and you had to match the left and the right. And hopefully it was the sizes were consistent. Like, I grew up like that, man. And so, but the one thing that I will say that they instilled in me was loving parents. They instilled very hard work. Both of my parents were very hard workers. Both of my grandparents were hard workers. And I didn't know it at the time, Diego, but as I look back, I was around entrepreneurship at a very young age. My grandfather who lived in Milwaukee was a real estate investor. He, didn't even have a 5th grade education, but he had 40 plus houses and 2 car washes.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather in Mississippi was a carpenter. He put 10 kids, most of them went to college off a carpenter's salary. My grandmother never worked. My dad sold life insurance. My mother was a real estate agent. So I was around entrepreneurship, but, there was no word for what entrepreneurship was at the time.
Yeah.
And they never pushed it on me. And so, I was told, just like most kids, go to school, get good grades, get a good job. But I learned very early that that wasn't the route for me. Even though in school, I was pretty much a straight A student. And I had never even got a C until my sophomore year in high school. Guess what I got a D in? You would never guess which class I got a D in.
PE?
Close. Band.
Bang.
Band. Let me tell you how I got a D. So I lived in Milwaukee, like I say, grew up in Milwaukee. And then after my freshman year, my parents sent me to live with my grandparents in Mississippi. So imagine moving from the city, the Midwest city, to a small town in Mississippi where I grew up on 110 acres and there's 3 houses on a farm. So we didn't have a television. There was nothing back there. And so started going to this new school and I was in a band. And I was in a band in Milwaukee from 6th grade to 8th grade. Played the trumpet. I actually was pretty good. So moved to Mississippi my sophomore year, joined the band. And have you ever seen the movie Drumline with Nick Cannon?
100%, yeah.
Okay, so you know how they do the Battle of the Bands.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
crazy how you saw the movie and then you actually got, you were in a podcast with him. You know what I mean?
right,
how the
that
tables
was
turn,
full
how
circle,
life, right?
man.
Full
That was
circle,
definitely
yeah.
full
Go
circle.
ahead, though.
And so now the Battle of the Bands, that was pre Drumline movie, and so that's actually where that whole that kind of community started, performing with the band. Like if you were in a band in Mississippi or in the South, it was the equivalent of being
A football player or something?
Easily.
Yeah.
If you were in a band and you were good and you were what you call first or second chair, meaning if there were 10 trumpet players, if you were trumpet player number 1 or 2, you were the man or the
you're the
woman.
all-star right
yeah,
there.
you were on an
Okay.
all-star league of performing. And so in the band season, you have two different seasons. You have contest season, and then you have marching season. Marching season is where you did the battle of the bands. Now, I'm a pretty reserved, and at one point I used to say I was shy and introverted. And so when we had to perform during during battle season for marching, we had to do dance moves. I was not about to gyrate.
So you ain't a dancer?
Absolutely not,
You're
Diego.
a gangster, you boogie.
I nod my head. That's about in two-step. And so I refused to do any of that, so I got a D in band class.
Let me tell you a little bit about my story and how I was a grade A student.
Right.
And I got advanced placement. I always talk about it. It's funny because my wife will, I always tell her, like, I was meant to be a doctor. I had advanced placement in anatomy and physiology.
Oh, wow.
I did all that stuff. But the truth is, here's the truth.
All right.
I found ways around the system. So
you cheated.
all my way through. I hung out. People didn't want to hang out with the nerds. I was the opposite. Like, I hung out. I was a popular kid.
Okay.
But I hung out with those that knew more than me. And I've done this all my life.
Definitely.
And I'm like, let me copy and see, and then learn from them to a certain degree. But I don't need to know it all.
Definitely.
Like, just let me know a little bit, and then the rest I'll copy. And so, like, I found ways around things, like, and some classes, like the ones I didn't care for math, which is crazy. I care for math.
Right.
I mean, add, multiplying, you know what I'm saying? Subtracting.
The basics.
The basics. That's what's
Right,
going to make me,
right.
Win. And I think I knew that at the time, so I didn't really care. I wasn't going to be a scientist or anything like that. So algebra, geometry, I
flunked algebra twice.
Yeah,
so
the only way that the professor, like, the teachers would let me get through, they were like, here's a D. Just get out of my class. Just get out of my class, because I wouldn't pay attention. I wasn't.
Right.
I didn't care. I didn't care for it. But yeah, I went through high school, junior high, being the popular kid, and I went to 4 different high schools, mind you. So I'd always have to, like, reroute myself and find out who the kids were and who's the best in class, and then and sit in that group, like the anatomy and physiology class.
Yeah.
I sat on the desk with the smartest kids in that room when nobody wanted to hang out with them.
Right.
Nobody wants to hang out with the nerds,
Definitely.
right? So I'm like, I was the opposite. I'm like, all right, cool. I knew what I was doing.
So you made them cool.
Yeah. I was like, hey, I know what I'm looking for and what they need. So they get a little bit of the cool side, and I get a little bit of the smart side.
Definitely.
And then we win. And then and I remember I used to do this. I think it was, I don't know if my senior or junior year. I'm just keeping it 100 right now. So I would go in and skip the day, because at that time I could skip, like not show up to class, because I was already, I think it was a senior or something like that. I would leave and then show up the next day after test day. So by the time I'm going to test day, they would send me to another class, right, to go do the test.
And then you had all their
the
answers
at the other class. So when I would go up, and I tell people, like, you guys frown on copying, but it's copying the right cat. It's copying the right people.
That's
I continue
very
to do that. I have, partnerships, and I have, just people that I invest in, even in the mentorship programs and all that stuff. I copy what I choose and pick what I need strategically, and then I copy it. And why am I going to reinvent it? It's already proven. They're already making billions. It's the reason they got there. Maybe I don't have to be that. Again, if you're a scientist, if you're technologies, like a techie, somebody like that. I'm not. I'm very horrible at a lot of things. I tell people I am not that guy, but I'm that guy. Like, I just find what I can, like you, man. Like, me and you linked up. You know a lot more than I know regarding the credit and funding, business industry. So why not? Like,
100%.
Why am I going to hate on you when I can collab with you and we can work together and we can make money? That's wealth.
That's
I mean, that's always wealth. But that's my story between being in school and getting through school, and how some of the teachers were just like, I was a clown sometimes, so they were just like, here's a D, get out of my class, or here's a C minus, you know what I mean? Let you get out of this place.
As you're telling that story, it made me think, you don't have to be a straight A student to be successful.
You don't.
And I think that's such a misconception. Because, I mean, you were copying the nerds. I flunked algebra twice. I got a D in band, but we're here. And so, man, I think it's just a testament to
back then, like you just said, to even hear what your band, like, I'm in Cali. I grew up in Cali, right? From LA to the Inland Empire and the Bay Area. Right. But here it's different. Like, people, if you were in band, you were a nerd. Nobody wanted to hang out with you. It's crazy how you're talking. And you go to the South, and everybody's like, "That's it. You're an all-star."
You got all the attention.
I'm not gonna touch band. I'm not gonna hang out with band. Hey, we'll hang out when people don't see us.
Right. That is too funny.
And that's how I would do it too. Like, I would always, like, it would be different crowds, and I think I would always like strategically put myself in certain places.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? To be, like depending on what I needed. You know what I'm saying? I kind of put the puzzles together, and I would.
You're a chameleon. You know how to move around.
I do that till the day.
Definitely,
man. It's crazy.
It's important because you got to know you have to go where the value is at, and I think also often too many people go where they feel that they're going to be the value. No, you have to go where the value is at.
Yeah.
And then you soak that in, and then you bring it back to your tribe. And so, man, no, I think. Man, you need to make a master class on that. Go find the people smarter than you, and then just go and soak it up, man.
That's why sometimes I get asked like certain questions, and I'm just like, I don't know the answer to that.
Definitely,
but I got somebody that does.
100%.
And then that's all that matters. Like
really
everybody's
is.
trying to do it all on their own. I'm like, the empires are not built by one single person.
Right.
You get me?
Well, they say Henry Ford, he never even knew how to build an automobile. He hired people smarter than him who knew how to connect the axles to the tires and how the pistons, made the engine run. And I think that's what's wrong with entrepreneurship today. You have so many people who feel they need to be great at everything. Oh, I need to know how to do the marketing. I need to understand law. Yeah. I need to understand credit. I need to understand. And then by the time they get out there, they've wasted 6-7 years, and now they don't even know how to get a customer.
Yeah.
But they're proficient in everything else.
And what's crazy is that, like you said earlier, I think both of us kind of grew up with the sense of like we had hardworking parents, right?
Right.
They already had entrepreneurship mindsets. They just never got to really, explore
Definitely.
and go to that point. I mean, we came to the U.S. from Mexico. My parents, just again hardworking Mexican. That's what they do, and that's what we continue to do. Thinking that that's how, I was talking about my hands, and how people think that that's the way, right? Shoveling and people hoorah against that, and I'm like, that's not me. Like, I came here to live the American dream. My parents brought me here for that reason, which is don't be the one in the trenches, be the one running the trenches.
100%, man.
And so I've always kind of had that mentality, but my parents helped me the same way. Like I remember my grandfather, rest in peace. He was like always like in the newspaper back then. It was a newspaper. He was always in the newspaper, like looking out for opportunities, and I would come visit, and he's like, hey. He knew. Wow. He already knew who I was. So he would be like, hey, go check this place out. When I was working at places, he would look for somewhere that was paying more. Hey, go to this place. They're interviewing. They're going to be paying more. So maybe you go there. And,
definitely.
Because I was always hustling, but at the same time had, my work at that time when I was younger. I had jobs. I had to continue, paying bills. I had a daughter at a young age. So I was always like trying to maneuver my entrepreneurship ways, and then trying to make a living off of everything.
Yeah, no, I was the same way, man. I think I had my very first job at 11. I was a golf caddy, and I can remember carrying golf clubs, which they were heavy at 11. And I think it took about 4 hours to do a round of golf. I would make $13 in 4 hours. So yeah, I started very young working.
People always look and see, and especially now in the social media world, and they feel like everything happens overnight, or this person got lucky.
Not even close.
And they don't realize. Like I think when me and you even first met, that was one of my questions too, like how long you've been in the space, and how long you've been doing this, because it's important.
Definitely.
For me, it's like under a decade. You're just not there yet.
You haven't been through enough. You haven't seen enough.
The biggest changes I've seen in my 2-decade careers as an entrepreneur has been every decade, like a big impact. Something that I have to overcome. That's like kill somebody.
It'll take the average person out, man.
Exactly, the average person out. So I'm like, okay, if you've gone through a decade, then there's some skin in the game. And you're ready to kind of
look, I still got the battle scars on my legs and arms. And man, I done been through everything, man. I done been sued multiple times. I've lost everything. I've been homeless. I've slept in my car. I mean, I've sacrificed every dollar that I had to climb out of a circumstance. So it's nothing that I'm fearful of when it comes to business or entrepreneurship. And I'm willing to lay down every dollar I have on something that I believe in, because I'm the one that can make it go right. And I think that's the hardest thing for so many people. When I speak to people and they say they're of faith, and I say, well, what is the definition of faith? And I make them look it up, and it's to have belief in someone or something. And I say, so do you have belief in yourself? And they say, yeah. And I'm like, so then what are you scared of? How can you say that you have faith but you lack belief that you're going to make this happen. Because remember, this is what you told me you wanted to accomplish. This has nothing to do with Will Roundtree. You said you wanted to be a millionaire. You said you were going to change your life. You said you was going to get your family out of poverty. You said these things. So is it that you're fearful, or do you truly have faith? Because they both resemble each other. See, fear is what pushes me so I don't go back to sleeping in my car. Fear is what pushes me so I don't go back to living in a weekly apartment, sleeping on a floor on top of bath towels because the roaches were so bad. So I'm still fearful, but the fear is what pushes me so that I don't go back to where I came from.
That's dope.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I always talk about, right? The push. I always
100%.
pray until something happens,
Yep.
And believe it, because if you don't believe it, the devil is constantly, and I don't care what you believe, there's always doubt. And I call it the
100%.
devil.
100%.
Right? God is made you to be great and to believe in yourself and believe in him.
Right.
If you believe in him, then you understand that no matter
Man,
what goes
you can't
down in
even
life,
fail, man.
he's the one that you're going to go back to, right? No matter what happens. I always talk about it spiritually, personally, financially. It does not matter. You go back to God, and things will work out. It's nothing. Pain is not eternal. I tell people, when you're going through something, that's temporary.
Right.
You're gonna overcome that, right? I've been there, right? Not being able to walk when I had the motorcycle accident like that. I literally, when it happened, and I could not feel my legs, and I could not move, I felt helpless, and it was like it was going to be an eternity before if I could even walk again, or if I could even. And then when I started walking, will I be limping for the rest of my life? I'm gonna look like a joke, limping everywhere.
Right.
Like I'm always thinking about things like that, and I was like, it's all doubt from the devil. It
really is, man.
And the blaming game. And at the end of the day, it was my fault, right? The accident, everything that went down, it's like, yeah, it's an accident, but at the end of the day, what could I have done to prevent it?
Right.
So it's like every lesson, every pain comes with a lesson learned. And if you're willing to actually learn it, some people they just don't learn it.
Man, to talk about pain for a second, I recently learned that the brain can't determine the difference between pain and happiness. It's an emotion. It's not a mental feeling. And so we can make the determination of the outcome of how every circumstance comes out. So just kind of like how you said you had an accident in 2021, I had a really bad weightlifting accident. I used to, at one point I wanted to be a bodybuilder. Well, not really, but I was in a gym heavily, and I'm in there powerlifting 225 pounds. I did the first set of 5. And my trainer was like, come on, man, let's knock one more out before you leave. So literally I was completely done with my workout, attempted to do another 5 in that set. One of the trainers from the gym came, clipped the bar while I had it in the air, slipped out of my hand, came down, split my abdomen, almost bled to death.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in a hospital, had a blood transfusion, which I recently just learned when you have a blood transfusion, it can actually alter your DNA. It can change a little bit of who you are because, again, you have somebody else's blood in you.
Wow.
And so, but what I told myself when I was in the hospital, and I can remember I had to sleep at a 90-degree angle, like kind of like this, because I couldn't lay flat because of the pain from my liver. And I didn't know if I was going to even make it because I had lost so much blood. But the whole time I was in there, and I remember my mother was in the hospital with me the bulk of the time, I told her, I said, I don't want anyone to come and see me. But I did that strategically. And the reason I did that is because I didn't want anyone coming in there feeling sorry for me. I wanted to be in a mental state that I'm telling myself I'm going to get out of here. I didn't want pity. I didn't want people saying, oh, poor baby, or Will, I'm sorry, or coming in there crying, because my brain and my mind was fixated on being, I'm getting out of here alive. I'm going to walk again. I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to be stronger. And so the brain only knows what you tell it.
Yeah. So
So if you tell it, oh, I'm a loser, I'm a failure, this is painful, this is hurt, that's all you will know. So I don't let, like you say, the devil inject negativity or doubt or fear or any of that into my subconscious, man.
Yeah, and sometimes you just got to remind yourself.
You have
because
to.
Sometimes it's funny. My little one, who's 4, will like watch me kind of walk around and I'm praying.
Right.
But I don't realize I'm actually talking.
Right.
You know, he's like, who are you talking to? Right. And then I'm like, and there's in these moments where like I'm being challenged with something and I'm asking for help.
Yeah.
Like, can you give me some direction, some guidance? I don't know. I truly don't know what I'm doing here now.
Right.
So what do I need to do to make the right decision? And so I can make a fast decision, because everyone knows the faster the decision, the faster the results, the faster you can adjust.
Definitely.
At least we know that.
100%.
The wealthy know that. That's something I learned from the wealthy. And when I say wealthy, I mean people that are above me.
No, I get it. Right.
But you know, that's one thing that I always do. Like I tell people, you got to remind yourself in that moment when that doubt's coming. Remind yourself then.
Yeah.
Don't wait till later, till you go to sleep or whatever, early in the morning when no one's
Or
around.
when it gets bad.
Exactly.
Because that's
like,
when
I
people.
just told you, I'll be in the middle of like something, and you know, with my kiddos, and this is that moment, you know, because I'm always, you know, either with them and now with the phones, access to the businesses.
Definitely.
So if it's a decision that needs to be made or something, that helps me just like, you know, like nip it in the butt right then and there at that moment.
Man.
I don't need to wait.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's just a reminder to yourself, like, wait, what am I doing? I've done this and I've accomplished this. I've done that. I've accomplished this. Like everyone's so busy on what I haven't accomplished or how I failed, but they never go back to going how many times I've won. Right.
Or how many people you've helped win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why don't you count on that? And that's crazy too, because I think, you know, you remind yourself, and sometimes someone else will remind you. And I was in a podcast in Miami, and I don't know if you know who he is, but Yalos was like, he told me, we were talking on, you know, off the air, and he was like, bro, it doesn't have to stop. I know you've always done everything for your family. You know, what's crazy is now you're doing it for us and everybody else in the world. Like, that's where it's important now. You're going to give to the world now.
Definitely.
Give yourself to the world.
Right.
Let everybody know what you know. Let everybody hear what you've been able to hear, you know, and be in the rooms that they might not have been able to be at, you know, financially. And so it really opened me up that, you know, you know, I took that and I ran with it. Like, you know what? I've always done this. I've always been a server,
right?
A person of service. I've always served other people. So, and I've always made it about them. I've always made it about, when I made it about myself before 2008 and I lost everything.
Never worked.
I fell apart and lost everything when I thought I was on top of the world.
Right.
And the moment I started making it about everyone else, my parents, you know, my daughters and my wife, now my kids, my boys, like everyone else, my nephew, my niece, everybody,
right.
My sister, I mean, you name it, you know, and I start making it about others. And then when he was like, you don't have to stop there. Like, you can now make it about the world.
Definitely.
With this, right? And I'm like, oh, you know, that facts, right? Facts. Now I can give back to more people.
Right. This is your ministry.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
That's crazy, yeah.
That's how I look at it, man. I remember one time I was looking up the word administer, and it is someone who goes and ministers to your flock or your people or your platform. And so, in a lack of better words, we're really ministers. Yeah. We're sharing the word or the gospel of, you know, saving people financially. Yeah. Man, it's powerful what we're doing, man.
Well, my biggest thing is really always, you know, glorifying God. And I think every time I've actually met, I always talk about mentorship, and it doesn't have to be financial mentor.
Right.
It could be like my pastor is my spiritual
100%.
mentor, right? I got a close friend that helps me also with that. He's a little bit more into scripture, so I can literally tell him my problem, and he can, you know, pinpoint it to this
through a scripture, right?
Okay, cool. So again, I get the people that are better than me on what they do, and then understand. And so one of my biggest challenges was that, like, hey, I'm doing well financially, right? I met with my pastor, and I said, I'm doing well financially, and I'm helping others get better financially, but I don't want to make it about me. So I don't want to ever, I mean, because my biggest end goal is to go to heaven. My end goal is to be with God, right? My end goal is to glorify God. And so I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm too big in myself and I'm making it me God. I'm not God.
Right.
I'm not
making
Jesus.
It about you.
Right? So I'm like, so I want to make sure that I and then he's like, you're good, because you've already pretty much told me where you're at. So you already believe that. You already know that, and you're doing it, you know, with that
100%.
in mind. So your heart and your mind is there, so you don't have to actually say it, but it'll come out naturally.
100%.
And so it's been the truth for me, you know.
That's powerful.
And so I always don't want to make it about religion, because I'm not. I'm about relationships. Everything I do,
100%.
right? The way you do one thing, you do everything. And so, you know, I'm very big on that. Just want to make sure that, you know, when we talk about these things, it's not to get some kind of reel that's going to go crazy. I see a lot of people. There's fake everywhere. There's a lot of snakes, right? So just be aware of that. And I always just do it because I want to make sure that people understand, look, I'm not here to glorify myself. Like I'm doing well. I'm blessed. I've been able to, overcome just like Will.
Right.
We've been able to overcome. But it's because we've been given the opportunity to get back up again. Because
100%.
God decided this was our end day. This was our
We
moment.
would have
That
been
was
done.
it.
We would have
And we're
been done, man.
So
Absolutely.
we're here, and all it takes is to show up, man. You show up. Right?
Early. Show up early.
Show up early, oh man. I'm like, look, show up. It's better to show up than not show up at all. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man.
But no, I get it. So let's get into more of your space, because that's how we met. Now, and you're very good at teaching, brother. You're teaching like you in front of like a whiteboard is like magic. You know what I mean? I'm not. I'm like, I got a lot to learn from you on that aspect, because I'm horrible at teaching. I'm more of like, I've been hustling, and I went from a hustler to a CEO to like a partner to like all this other stuff. And then, obviously I've been able to, one thing we relate on is business and real estate hand in hand.
Definitely.
Right? But what got you to be that great at speaking? And 'cause like you said, you were an introvert.
Yeah, man, very much so,
What can people
man.
take from you that, or even myself, like, that made you so good at teaching now, because you teach the product well?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for those accolades. So in 2003, I joined a network marketing company, and shout out to my mentor John Malott, who's probably one of the top influencers in the network marketing space in the country, probably the world. Mm-hmm. And I can remember he saw more in me than I saw in myself at the time. And I remember the first time he asked me to go speak in front of a room. And I said, man, I can't do that. I'm shy. And he looked at me. He was like, how did you catch that? He was like, Will, you're only shy because you tell yourself that. He was like, now go in front of the room. So he forced me to be who I am today. And so the second time I actually had to speak in front of a class, and this was in 2004, the first time, 2016, and I'm kind of in my space now, and I had an opportunity to speak at an event in Atlanta, Georgia. I almost pretended to be sick just so I was that scared.
Wow.
And I didn't even go to sleep that night. I probably drank 7 Red Bulls. I'm trying to amp myself up. I'm listening to every Eminem record and DMX record, looking in the mirror, trying to get excited. And then I just remember everything that I learned in network marketing. I still actually have all of my journals from 2004 up until today.
Wow.
And the thing that I learned about speaking in front of the class is one, people only know what you tell them. I think a lot of the times we get so in our head about trying to be perfect. Yeah. They're there to listen to you or to me.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. And the second thing is that I wanted to be able to tell a story with my words, because facts tell, stories sell. So when you watch a McDonald's commercial, the facts of a McDonald's commercial is, if it's a hamburger, they're going out into the barn, slaughtering the cow and coming back with a bloody bun. But the facts but the story they're selling, family, togetherness, happiness, happy meal. We're at the table, we're smiling, eating chicken. And so that's one of so I actually started to study how speakers would convey or command a room. And it was through telling stories. And then I tied the stories into my life. And then I utilize the examples of what it is that I'm talking about. But then also, everything I talk about, Diego, these are my real stories. Yeah. This is stuff that I actually experienced. Mm-hmm. So when it came to credit, the reason I could talk about it so proficiently, because I once had a 400 credit score. I had 2 repos.
I didn't even know that existed, bro. 400?
You can actually have a 300.
You probably hold the record of that.
I probably do. They probably got my
photo
Guinness, at the FICO building. But yeah, man, so I was hiding my car from the repo man. I worked at a collection agency. I thought about filing bankruptcy. Everything you could think of negatively from a credit standpoint, I went through until one day I started to learn about how powerful credit truly is. And this was in 2007, 2008. I started to learn that credit is how the wealthy had an advantage when it comes to scaling in wealth building, because we were always taught save our money.
Yeah, and use your own money, right?
But you can't outsave inflation. Yeah. You can't outsave taxes. When for every dollar you make, Uncle Sam gets 30%. The banks the bank makes 90% of what's left over. And I started learning about just these wealth concepts of fractional banking. So I was like, you know what? Let me learn and figure out what this credit thing is. And I can remember up until that point, I always had to put I didn't have a bunch of money, but I always had to put money down on a vehicle. Once I fixed my credit, Diego, I've never put money down on a car again, unless I wanted to. Mm-hmm. But, I never fathomed even owning a home because my credit was so bad. And when I was in Las Vegas from 2005 to 2012, I moved every single year because I couldn't afford steady place of residency. I never fathomed being a homeowner. And then I was able to buy a home in 2013. And so I was like, man, there has to be more than what we've been communicated to or taught about this thing called credit. And then I remember reading a book on Robert Kiyosaki and seeing a video, obviously Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. And I heard him talk about he bought his first investment property with a credit card. Changed my life. And I was like, I need to learn how he did that, because the likelihood, I'm making $30,000 a year at the time, the likelihood of me saving 20 grand to put down on a home is slim to none. Yeah. If I can figure out how to leverage somebody else's money, which is what he talked about, I can perform. Yeah. And so I just started to learn all of these concepts and principles. So I didn't talk about anything, or I didn't get in front of a room and try to teach until I mastered all of those concepts. Mm. And then once I mastered it and once I became proficient in it, I first of all learned everything that didn't work, because I need to be able to also tell you why something doesn't work. Yeah. I master. Okay.
Would that be? And I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
Would that be because you failed at it?
Absolutely.
You tried it and
no,
you failed.
Because I failed. Okay. Yeah, but then I had
to make sure that everyone watching understands that. Like, look, you learn through failure.
You learn through failure, man.
That's how you get somebody to mentor you. Right? They've already done that.
100%. Yeah. So I learned through failure, and when I first got in the credit space, I remember my very first company was titled New Beginnings Credit Repair in 2007. It failed miserably, by the way. And man, nobody was talking about credit in 2007. Yeah. I used to whisper to people, "Hey, I do credit repair," because it was like
it's like a secret.
It was like
a
secret.
You don't want to talk about it.
People looked at you weird if you said you did credit or were in the credit repair space. And so, but
like, what kind of scam you involved in?
It was all credit and scam was synonymous every time, man.
You with the
feds? Right. We had to have underground workshops. Like, nobody cared, man. And so, but here's where I saw the industry change. Mm-hmm. There was one of the first credit repair softwares is a company by the name of HTDI, which it was these two young guys who started the company. And that's actually, from that company, then you had a company called Dispute Suites, which is Ty Crandall, which they're still around. And as I started to see these credit repair software companies, and I'm talking about 2008, I was like, oh, this is really going somewhere.
You're doing this during the market crash.
Absolutely.
I'm losing and people are killing themselves and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
You're working. That's crazy you say that because, when I opened the tire shop in 2009, right, because that was like my go-to. I needed to make some money to start getting back into real estate investing. It was like everyone was telling me, "What are you doing? Like we're in the middle of a recession.
Yeah, man.
Everything's going down. You don't want to do this now." And this when you
you
grow. People don't realize like during this time right now that we're in the middle of a market shift. Because I don't call it a crash because I've been through the crash. Right. This is no crash, but we're in the shift. Like this is when you want to do it. Everybody else who's going to remain, mediocre and remain in their livelihood of what they do now, they're not going to ever see the growth. The people that are taking action now are going to grow. No,
absolutely, man. And so I learned really just through my own experiences, through my failures, trial and error, helping people see. I seen what worked. I seen what didn't work. I went through a FICO certification. So in 2011, I got certified by FICO to understand credit and be proficient in it, which I actually probably in this space I probably hold one of the last certifications, and I post it all the time. And so I tell people I do this professionally. So even when I meet people, you know, and sometimes when they're asking like, well, what makes you stand out? I'm like, oh, because I do this professionally. I'm not just some guy in a living room. I have a staff. I have a customer service team. So if you can't reach me, you can call my office. I have a online portal. I have checks and balances. I have an attorney on staff. I have a CFO, you know, chief financial officer. Like, we have all the compliances of an actual company, not just me in the living room sending out letters. You know, I don't even see the letters. So, but I say all of that not to impress people, but to impress upon people that I took something that I used to get laughed at for doing, and I made it an entire company. And I will go down in history, and I will say this, that I'm probably one of the pioneers for why credit is so popular on the internet, because I probably was the first black who went viral talking about credit on YouTube. So yeah, man.
Let's go. And that's yeah, I mean, that's impressive, man. I think what when you first got started with the credit, at what point did you decide, hey, now I got to get into this business funding, because, you know, entrepreneurs and business owners they need funds.
Yeah, no,
like
absolutely.
I always tell people, you're gonna cap out. I'm telling you,
you're gonna run out of money,
and then you're gonna realize you need more money.
Let me say this to the camera: you will run out of money. It's inevitable.
That's the biggest challenge everywhere I see. Everyone always asks, like, what's the biggest challenge? I'm like, for entrepreneurship, CEOs,
money.
You're
gonna run out of money.
10,000 and the 100,000, 6-figure, 7-figure, or even in the 8-figure, is you run out of money.
Man.
So then that's why there's debt.
All
and
the
then
time.
you guys look at it as negative debt, but it's good debt.
Yeah.
Right. The difference is they're using it to leverage,
Make money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, interestingly, man, like, I really started to understand the power of business credit in 2010. And so there was a company in Las Vegas, Nevada, by the name of Nevada Corporate Headquarters, which they're actually still around. And they used to sell an ebook on becoming business funding compliant. And that may not be the technical term of what the ebook was for, but it was like a page or two. And they were selling it for $2,500, I believe, which is basic information that now I actually give away.
Yeah.
But
back then, those ebooks,
oh
that's
man,
what it was at.
that was gold. But I'll tell you what had me turn my eye to that. When I learned, going back to that OPM. See, when I was in network marketing, I didn't understand what network marketing was teaching me at the time. Yeah. I look back at network marketing as my internship into business.
Same.
It was my internship.
I had other stuff I was doing, right? But when I got into the network marketing, it wasn't the money. I was making more money with my real estate and my car flips and everything else I was doing. But it was the information I was given, and I was different than you. Like, I was ready for that stage. Right. So when I was
wasn't.
You know what I mean? Like, people that were on stage were making less money than me. So when I was like, I'm ready. Let me get on the stage, you know? So when they gave me the stage, I was like, let's run with it.
Man, I was running away from the stage. You couldn't even get me to walk across and tell my testimony.
And people still frown on that MLM, and I'm like, dude, you don't realize how, like personal development, everything that I know,
it's changed my life.
MLM. It was from multi-level marketing. Yeah. It's being able to network, being able to talk to anybody and everybody, and the books. Like, how much information did they give you to really develop yourself?
Yeah,
right?
man.
And that the only cost is you have to put in the work.
That's
you
it,
have
man.
to actually put in the work.
That's it. I think back even like when I was in the beginning stages of being in network marketing, my mentor would have us come, had nothing to do with the training of the product. We would just have personal development sessions, mindset, John Maxwell talking about leadership, Robert Kiss. I mean, it was strictly just about how to think differently.
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn, the GOAT. And it had, but what I'm noticing now in entrepreneurship is that everything is so transactional. I tell people, I can tell if somebody's making money or if the money will last based upon the way they think. And most people, and both of us have been in this industry for 2 decades. We've seen the people who made a bunch of money in the pandemic and now they have nothing because they never became. And I tell people that was
like winning the lottery, brother.
You will always lose it. You're gonna always lose it, man. And so I became first before I arrived. And that is the hardest thing for a lot of people because we're fascinated by what the money can give us. I was always wanting my freedom. It wasn't the stuff. The stuff is a byproduct. Because I know poor and broke people who got nice cars and nice houses, but they have zero peace. They have to work. Like, we're fortunate enough, like we can take a flight out on a Friday morning and come and do this podcast. Like we can do those things because we became that first before, we got into the industry. But as far as speaking, man, I mean, I sucked in the beginning, but I didn't give up.
At it now,
Thank you, man.
It's crazy. I mean, it's evolving. Like you just said, it's becoming, And then as B do have, we always talk about that, right?
100%.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And for me, it was like, I might have took a L in the MLM world. My mentor at the time passed away during the process.
Oh, wow.
What I saw is, obviously you have, everybody calls it a pyramid. Same thing in business. Everything is
corporate America's a pyramid.
So, but anyways, so when he passed, it's crazy how this happened to me. I didn't even, like, when you're talking about it, I'm like, I didn't realize that. My mentor at the time, he got cancer and passed away. And I remember going to Irvine for, his memorial thing. And I'm just like, that's crazy. I was so young, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was, like, oblivious to it. But the fact that after he passed, everything fell apart because it all relied on him. And then when I had the accident, you know what I mean, in the motorcycle accident, I couldn't move or do anything. Everything underneath me fell apart.
Wow.
So it was like crazy, like how, that's why I always teach business owners on systems, procedures, operations. How can your business run without you, even with your significant other who has no involvement in the business? But at least if something were to happen to you, someone can come in and it's not going to die in 6 months or a year. You see it all the time. It's gonna basically rely on a system that's going to be there no matter what. So a teenager can run it, right? And that's what you want. You want to be able to start like implementing these things that are like the boring part of business, right? Because they're boring, they're not exciting, but you need them so that way things can function without you. Because like you said, that's what buys the freedom. To me, it was the environment. When I was growing up, man, and I had to work at these jobs, while I was hustling. I mean, I even sold, I don't know if I mentioned in another podcast, but I even sold women's clothing out of the trunk of the car.
Oh, wow.
I was working at Food for Less out here in Pomona, California. And then when I would have my breaks, I'd go out there, pop the trunk, and be trying to sell clothes, bro, like women's clothing. Why women's clothes? Because they buy. Men wouldn't buy nothing. They wear the same pants all week. They ain't worried about nothing. It wasn't like it is today where they want to flock and wear different stuff. Back then, it was just all women. Women were the shoppers, man. I'd be like, I got these dresses. Where are you going tonight? You know what I mean? And that's how I would do. But I was always hustling, aside of, running. But I hated the environments of the jobs I would be at. Like when I was there, I worked the hardest, bro. And when it came to like getting some kind of a raise or getting a different position, I was always the last.
Impossible.
And I'm like, man, how am I doing all the positions and I'm willing to put in all the work?
Right.
And yet you're not willing to at least give me some kind of reward. And how stupid was I then, right? The little reward was nothing.
Yeah.
But to me, I was like, hey, that was naive. That was everything to me.
Definitely.
But that manager or that person, they didn't know, what could have drove me to become better for them.
So they did you a favor.
Yeah. At that point, but I'm talking to these people that are looking at their teams and they're not doing the right thing, and then that's what caused me to go.
Definitely.
Like all you have to do is just show me some type of gratitude or some kind of give me something.
Well,
right?
It goes back to the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You got to whiff them.
Friends, yep.
What's in it for them?
Yeah.
And I think so many entrepreneurs that lead with, if I do all of this, I'll make this amount of money. No, I need to figure out what's going to make Diego happy as my client.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking to get your first investment. Okay, so we're going to put all of our focus and attention on you succeeding first. We're going to put all our focus and attention on Robert, on Terry, on so we all, and that's why every client I meet with, my very first question is, even though I know why they may have come to me, I'm going to always say, what is your end goal? Because everybody's end goal may not be to purchase an investment or to be a millionaire. We assume everybody wants. We assume everybody wants to be a millionaire. That's not the case for most people, believe it or not. Some people are like, well, I'm just trying to get stable financially. What do I do? Oh, well, look at your expenses and income. Oh, you're overspending. Let's fix a couple things. Oh, you are.
And they got to be willing to do it.
They
too.
have to be willing to do that.
Because like, I want to change my life. Oh, but that's going to impact me. I'm so used to this. So what?
You got to give it up.
When I started, I was eating literally like cup of noodles, bro.
That's
like,
all
like,
I
That's
ate.
it. And I wasn't going to the dinners anymore or the lunches or, I was still in the space, so I still had the real estate connections to a certain degree. Everybody was broke, but they were still meeting. They were still doing the lunches, the dinners. And I'm like, I can't afford that. I can't. I'm not there. I have to sacrifice that so I can, because I know my end goal. I know exactly where I'm headed, what I'm trying to do.
Man.
That's
hard for a lot of people, because if you ask 10 people, and there's actually been studies. If you ask 10 people what their goal is, they don't know.
That's crazy. Yeah.
They don't know.
That's crazy. And when I go on stage, you talk about that. I was like, I didn't realize I do story tell about my own story, but I make it about them.
Yeah.
I always tell people like I'm here because we're here for you. Like you showed up because there's something that you're missing or that you're looking for. That one thing that's going to trigger for you to go out there and actually take action.
Definitely.
So there's always about them, right? And I think that's the delivery. Everybody is so transactional nowadays because they want everything fast, right? We're a drive-through. Let's get it done. I want to get it done and get out of here. Here in Cali, In and Out. I want to be In and Out. Maybe you want to be In and Out. Give me the good burger and the good shake and fries.
2 minutes at a fast food, you're mad.
Yeah. Oh, upset. Like, what took you guys so long? Like, it has to cook, right?
But that's how people are looking at success.
Yeah.
Oh, I showed up, Diego. I should be a millionaire this year.
Yeah.
Not knowing that, no, we got to dig you out of you're not even at ground zero. You're 40 feet below ground zero.
Bro, you buried yourself 5 years and you want to get out in 5 weeks.
Yeah,
like,
man.
it's going to take time.
A lot.
Like, people don't realize that. Like, it's an impact of time. People don't gain weight, overnight. It's a little bad habit over and over again. So I always tell people, check your habits. Something you're doing is not adding up.
Yeah.
It's your habits. So go and check your bad habits and then multiply your good habits, and then you're going to get results. But if you keep doing the same thing over and over again,
nothing will change.
You're going to just become insane.
Nothing will change.
That's the description of insanity, right?
Yeah.
People don't realize that. Like, it's not going to happen overnight because you didn't do it overnight. You didn't go broke overnight. You like all these things that you think, or even your past ancestors in your family and all that. Yeah, we were probably here. It's up to you to break that chain.
Right.
In order to do that, you got to do something super impactful, uncomfortable, all against everything that you've ever learned, because everything you've ever learned is the reason you're in the position you're in right now. So now it's like, how can you break that? And it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to give you anxiety, and it's going to give you all this craziness, and you have to be willing to do it.
And it is, which goes back to your original question about the business funding. That is very uncomfortable for people because we've been taught that debt is bad all of our lives. We were taught that credit is evil. And I tell people, credit doesn't have feelings. It's a tool. And so the uncomfortable part is that you're telling a business owner who's probably saved up for 20 years just to open the doors to go get a line of credit for $100,000. That's very uncomfortable for them. And so, but when I I remember the very first time I did that myself in 2014, 15, I went and applied for some unsecured business credit cards. I got like $47,000. And I sat back.
You say unsecured, can you kind of just...
Yeah, definitely. So unsecured credit cards are cards that I didn't have to utilize any collateral. That means I go to the bank, I fill out a credit card application, and based upon my merit, my credit score, my credit worthiness, my income, my revenue, and I didn't even have to show proof of income, they'll give me a credit line for that particular card in that bank. And so without the proof of income.
And so you said unsecured, so that means you're not securing it?
Yep, there's no collateral, meaning I didn't have to put my house up, my car, none of that stuff. All I had to do was the only collateral was my good name. That's it. And of course, the name tied to the credit score. Okay. So I had $47,000 accumulatively. This was over a couple different credit cards. And in today's time, a person would probably say that's not a lot of money in credit. And I say they'll say that because I think people are spoiled now because of how much money people were getting during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But I sat back and I thought about it. how long would it have taken me to save 47,000? Probably a lifetime out. You know, like I say, my job at the time, I was making 30 grand a year. And so I was like, okay, so now I'm going to take this 47,000 and now I'm going to invest in my marketing. Let's say my marketing is $1,000 a month, and I'm just making up a number.
Yeah.
Over the course of 90 days, which is 3 months for a good marketing campaign, you want it to run at least 3 months. The total would be $3,000. The monthly payment on $3,000 is probably only going to be about $40 a month. So all I have to do is sell how many clients to be able to cover my marketing costs. So I started looking at the credit and the business funding as a mathematical equation. I took the emotion out of it. So now when I go buy real estate, I know for every $100,000 I borrow, for every $100,000 on real estate at a 9% interest rate over 30 years is going to cost me, let's just say, about $800. And then if I leverage the lines of credit for my down payment, I know for every 100,000, I only need 25,000. So if I get a $400,000 property, I need $100,000. So I made everything a mathematical equation, but then I looked at, okay, how much is this property going to bring me? Or if I relate it to a business, how much is my average product? So if my marketing budget is 1,000, how many widgets or how many customers or how many coaching calls do I have to offer to be able to cover my marketing costs? How much does the rent have to be in order for me to cover my debt servicing for the property? So I made it a mathematical equation. So now you come to me and say, hey, Will, I have X that can help your business. And if I see the value in that and you're saying, hey, this is what it's going to cost me, it's going to be 5,000. I'm not sitting there trying to figure out where I'm gonna get the money from. I'm like, okay, I got a line of credit for 200,000 with Chase. Let me put that on the line of credit, Diego. And all I have to figure out is how many clients do I have to sell to be able to cover the services that you're gonna offer me? I make it a mathematical equation. Yeah. So that's how I changed the landscape and how business funding,
because so many
put
people
my business on steroids.
Yeah, because I was brought up the same way, where it's like, oh, look at the rate. You know, the rate is 23% on the credit card or whatever, and that's how I buried myself before '08 when I was younger. You know, I didn't know what I was doing, so I was making a mess. But no good debt, all bad debt. And I remember, like, now, and I think you covered this when I got to see you speak, was how that 23% is divided by 12,
yeah.
And then you do the math, and then you see what you're investing, because you're not spending that money.
That's what you're
using
investing.
that money. You're using the bank's money to make money, and that's the difference between having the. I always tell people, you got to learn how to start making money work for you. There's only so many hours in a day, and there's only one of you. So if you don't start learning how to make Uncle Sam work for you, you're never going to be able to overcome your own capacity, which is you're only able to do so much on your own. Money has to start doing its own thing for you.
Well, because people only understand implementation. Going back to when you talked about your hands, people only know how to make money with these. I had to learn how to make money with this. And that's where changing your mindset shifts from. People literally assume if you're not swinging a hammer or changing a tire or typing on a keyboard or doing something that is physically labor intensive, that you can't make money. Meanwhile, you and I are sitting here doing this podcast. Somebody is on our webinars that is playing, on online, and they're buying something that we put in stone 5 years ago, but we had to pay for the marketing for them to be able to find it. We made money make money for us.
Yeah, and going back to what you were saying, like, for me, the importance, as an entrepreneur financially, for me has always been, we're talking about the environment.
Definitely.
And it's like, when you're in ugly environments, for me, it was like, man, I want to be able to create my own environment. So I always tell people, like, you got to determine what is it that you want. Like you just said, for me, it was the freedom. I got the freedom to be able to. Man, like, the freedom is worth more than any materialistic thing.
Man,
the freedom,
everything,
right? To be able to, and I mean, obviously, you just got here to my place, but it's like I'm peaceful.
100%.
Like I'm in the middle of chaos every day. I need a place where I can, it be peaceful and safe. obviously with my family.
Yeah.
And so
No, it reminds me of an old Jim Rohn quote. It says, "You're not a tree. Move." We have to sometimes move out of an environment to create the environment that is conducive for us to be able to operate. And so that's one of the reasons I left Milwaukee and moved to Las Vegas. I moved to Las Vegas, and I haven't shared this story often, Diego, but I'll share this with you. Before I moved to Las Vegas, I was on the verge of committing suicide. That's how dysfunctional my environment was. But it was dysfunctional because I was surrounded by nothing but chaos, nothing but drug dealing, nothing but players and pimps and prostitution and gang. Like, that's what I grew up in. And coming from the Midwest in what some would call the ghettos of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that's all you know. And sometimes it's hard for you to escape that environment because you don't have an alternative. And that's why I go as hard as I do, is because I have to tell people that there is an alternative, but you have to be willing to meet the destination halfway. Sometimes it's hard to come out of those environments because that's where you're comfortable. Being comfortable, it doesn't require any effort. Being comfortable doesn't require any accountability, any responsibility. And so I was willing to sacrifice and lose everything, leave my family behind. I mean, I lost friends. I was in a, somewhat of a relationship I left all of that behind, man. And I remember John Malott loaned me $500 because I didn't even have $2 I didn't even have $0 in my bank account. My bank account was probably negative. Wow. And I moved across the country and moved to Las Vegas with nothing.
Why Vegas?
So at the time, obviously, I was still in the network marketing company, and John Malott was recruiting heavily in Las Vegas. Okay. And it was kind of like a new market. Yeah. And so it gave me an opportunity. And when I first moved to Las Vegas, I was renting a room from a stranger. I didn't even know. I mean, he was in our organization, but I really didn't know him. He could have been a serial killer. Like, he could have been anything, but luckily he wasn't. And we're still, friends to this day. But I had to get out of that environment, man. And sometimes you have to have somebody to force you out of a certain environment, because if I had stayed in Milwaukee, I don't even think I would be here today, man, because mentally I was beat up mentally, man. Wow. Yeah.
That's crazy how people, don't realize, it's a spiritual and a mental thing.
It is, man.
About that. You got to get yourself in the right place. And people are, even if someone's well off financially, that's why I always talk about, it's not always financial. Sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's personal. Sometimes you need to get your personal development on so you can understand more. Well, I already read the book. I already read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Oh yeah, well go read it again. Yeah, I was like, go read it again.
Because you're not practicing the concepts.
Yeah, exactly. Because you obviously didn't get it because you're over here doing the same things, or you're asking questions. Like, sometimes, we got to get called out, right? You know what I mean? And so sometimes
for real, man.
That's just really what it takes.
Yeah.
And it's time is of the essence.
100%.
You got to be able to take action faster now, and you have all the tools in place. So it's just a matter of implementing.
Definitely,
and that's the hardest thing for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, well, because some people can't afford the implementation.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you want an online presence, you have to be able to afford to pay for the stuff so people can find you online. Yeah. But guess where they can get it from if they don't have it? A line of credit. Yeah. So that's why credit is so powerful, man.
Being able to utilize it to your advantage, to make money, to invest it, not to go buy yourself the Range Rover.
That's what people do.
Or the Lambo, or the stuff that you want to do, because that feels good for a moment, but then at the end, it's like you never again develop to be that person to do and to have. Yeah. So you got to do that, and then you're able to go ahead and move to that stage. And I think people don't realize that, and it's everything. Like, if you're mentally still telling yourself and doubting yourself, there's something wrong. You're a business owner, but you're still in doubt. So something that you're doing isn't working. Yeah. So what makes you think that doing the same thing over and over again is going to change the outcome? No, like, you want something to truly impact your life. Like, you want something impactful to happen, you got to do something impactful. Like, it's got to, like that. You got to move from what you're used to living in one state to another state, and you know,
Yeah,
and my
man.
parents, you know, like from Mexico, which they knew, to selling everything, to coming, to being here on the streets, having a home. They had a home in Mexico.
Right.
To leaving that, to saying, hey, we got to go change the American dream for our kids.
That's
We're gonna
impactful.
go somewhere where we're gonna be on the streets. And we were on the streets. We didn't land here and end up at a home. No,
Right.
we were on the streets. Like, we'll figure it out. And you know, we were blessed to get picked up by strangers picked us
Wow.
up and gave us a place to stay. But had that never happened, you know, they never took a leap of faith and said, hey, let's go. You know, and so that's just like a testament of like, what excuse do I have?
Definitely.
I'm here in the States. I have no excuse. I'm here. I got to make it happen.
No,
You
real
know?
talk, man.
And then people are just like, again, just kind of back into that mentality. So I always tell people, it's your mental. Like, it's your mindset.
It's all
You
mental,
got to change
man.
it. Something's wrong with your. Well, what do you mean? Well, look, I see your response. I know exactly what you're thinking. I know how you're, moving. Someone, and in this is for, I got to call out the dudes out there. Some of you guys out there got to man up. Like, some of you guys really got to sit here and like understand that it's not up to your significant other. You know, when it's up to you. Like, you're supposed to be the provider. You're supposed to be the protector. You're supposed to be the one that makes the ultimate decision that says, you know what, I got to do this. And whether you like it or not, I'm going to make sure that the results speak for themselves.
Yeah,
The
no.
thing is, you're doubting yourself because you don't know whether you're going to be able to, one, you let your ego get in the way. You don't want
Yeah.
somebody telling you what to do, which you need somebody to tell you what to do, because sometimes we need that. We need that, someone to be there and kind of coaching us and mentoring us and telling
100%.
us the truth, the fact.
No,
You know what I
100%.
mean? Not lying to you and telling you everything you want to hear because you want to feel inspired, but you don't want to feel the truth, which is, hey, let's move. Let's make this happen. This has to happen. You got to get it done this way. Like, I don't understand. Like, I mean, I get it. Happy wife, happy life. But at the same time, your wife ain't happy, or your significant other is not happy if you're not providing and giving that protection and giving that freedom. And some of them, it's not the money. Some of them just want that freedom to be with you
Yeah.
and for you to be with the family and for you to, be able to listen and do these things. But you're not able to because you're so constantly broken, mentally, spiritually, financially broken. And you don't seem to want to change that. And how can you change that? And how can you impact that? Well, you got to go and get courageous and go all in.
You have to,
That's
man.
it, man.
You have to. Yeah, there's this thing I started doing where I speak to men specifically, and I say, fellas, she watching you. She's watching. She see the decisions you're scared to make. She see how you're not leading. She see the opportunities that you failed to take advantage of. And unfortunately, because we're going to keep it real, like you said,
Yeah.
if you don't do it, she's watching somebody else who is making those decisions.
100%. Not only that, and that's so crazy that you say that, because I think when we have our behind the scene conversations
Yeah.
with my wife, like, she will tell me certain things and I'll be somewhere else,
Right.
traveling or doing anything, whatever. And her words will come into my head and remind me. And that's okay. It's
Right.
a reminder.
But that's
like,
what it's
stay
supposed to
on
do.
point. Stay on point. And I told her, like, that's why we met in Vegas, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
We met in Vegas. I said, that's why you keep me on my toes. That's why me and you have always been good, and I've never cheated. I've always
Right.
cheated all my life.
Right.
I've never been committed. And then, when it came to her, everything full circle, right? So
Right.
it's like, but that's what it is. It's like keeping the accountability. We're talking about mentorship and coaches, keeping you accountable. It's what it's for. It's
That's
to
what
keep you
mentorship.
accountable.
It's
Because
not to
gotta
make
have
you a
somebody-
millionaire.
Yeah,
It's to hold you accountable, give you the
Exactly.
information,
Yeah,
the
and
data,
to your actions.
and to yeah.
Yeah, because that's what it is. Really, like, hey, it's really what you're doing right now. Is that an MMA? Is that a money making activity, or is that you just messing around? Like, get on point. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
And it's okay. And I love that. That's how power couples are made.
Definitely.
Because you keep each other accountable.
Right.
And many of you guys are out there, just in all honest truth, just being the female in the relationship. And not, and I don't, that might hurt a lot of people out there listening to this, but it's just facts. It's the truth. I mean, and like I said, me listening to her telling me or reminding me of things that keep me accountable does not make me a female. It makes me understanding and align with my significant other and understanding that I'm here to provide and protect.
Right.
I'm not here to be the opposite. You know what I'm saying? Because let's keep it real. There is no opposite. There is no rainbow. You know what I mean? You're either white or black. That's it.
Yeah,
There
there's no
ain't-
in
that's it.
between.
That's just
Yeah.
me. You
That's
know what I mean?
life though. It's no
Yeah.
in between. You got to pick a side of the spectrum, man.
That's it, man.
You have
That's
to.
it. And you know, you got brought into the God brought you here to be a man and to be great, to be a warrior. You got to show up and you got to
Have to,
you know,
man.
and business has no feelings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you're broken, let's figure out why you're broken. And let's
get you
fix it.
get you healed.
Yeah.
Because I tell people all the time, man, like being poor is very hard.
Super hard.
Being rich is hard. You got to pick which one you want.
Which hard you want, right? There's only
You
one.
have to
You got to
pick.
figure out how.
You
know,
got to
which way.
pick a side, man.
And then I talk about that. You said it earlier, rich. And guys, again, and girls, it's not rich financially all the time. It might be, you know, rich, you know, health-wise.
Health-wise,
it might be
yeah.
rich, you know, again, spiritually. It might be rich, you know, within your relationship, within your family, within as a father, as a mother, as, you know, whatever is important to you, that wealth it's there.
Definitely.
So if you're lacking it, there's somebody there who's already achieved it through the challenges in life that have happened. I'm not a young cat. I may look young. I'm not young. I've had, you know, a few decades under my belt. And so, you know, I always push that like full circle, like, Diego, what's different with you? Like, I'm not all business. It's like business, but really it's spiritually, it's really personally, it's really
Yeah.
like overall, like, because like you just said earlier, maybe you don't want to be the millionaire. Maybe you don't want to make, and that's okay.
That's okay.
I'm not going to be, you know, fake and tell you like I'm, you know, a billionaire in this space, because I'm not, right? But I can tell you this, I'm super, super wealthy all the way around. Time,
Right,
freedom,
yeah,
you know,
definitely.
family,
Definitely.
like health, like everything circle, you know, everything about me is wealth.
100%.
And so I know.
I mean,
wealth.
with the all black on, you definitely look wealthy,
You're,
man.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely,
So black always
man.
goes well, man.
It
with
does,
everybody,
man.
You know
It
what I
does,
mean?
man.
But yeah, man. Look, let's talk about your why, right?
Definitely.
What keeps igniting you, because you've been through all these challenges, you've overcome challenges, you're here now, and some people wonder, like, well, why are you doing this? You don't need to. Like, you've already made X, Y, Z. You know, what keeps you going? What? Because Ignite, you know, is we got to fire
Definitely.
these people up and
100%,
make them
100%.
understand. But what ignites you, brother? What's the one thing that keeps you going and fires you up?
So my why has changed over time. You know, at one point, my why was just to be able to have a stable place to live. But I remember I was watching something on YouTube years ago, and the guy asked a question. He said, how many people know who their great-great-grandparents are? And I sat back and I thought about it. I was like, I definitely don't. And he said, do you want to know why? Because they didn't leave you nothing. He said, do you think that the Hiltons know who their great-grandparents are? You think the Marriotts know? He was like, the reason people know who Dr. Martin Luther King is because he left a legacy. So my why is my legacy now, man. And the legacy isn't, like you say, just about financial. It's about, I want my great-great-grandkids to know who Will Roundtree was. I want them to understand that I was a pioneer in this entire financial industry. I want to go down in history as a trailblazer, man, because sometimes when there's no money opportunities to be made, the name is what gets the opportunities for you. And so for whether it's for my son or, you know, whatever lineage that continues to come behind me, man, I want them to be able to have that level of nepotism and unfair advantage because of the legacy that Will Roundtree laid here today, man. So that's what my why is, and that's what I fight for every single day.
Deep, man, deep. See?
Yeah.
Speaking of the way you speak, brother,
Thank
I
you,
can
man.
appreciate that, and I think that's the biggest thing, right? The
100%.
legacy that you leave behind, and I think we all want that, right? It's always the name, like you just said. It's the name,
Yeah.
like who. It's not what you know, is who you
It's
know,
who you
and
know,
it's who,
man.
you know, and
For real.
And where, if does your name come up, right? And I'm like, man, I don't care whether my name comes up in hate or in love. Just have it come
Somebody
up.
speak it.
Just speak it.
They know me? Okay, let's go.
Well, that's it. Let's go. What's crazy? Speaking about that, I was in on a platform. I'm gonna keep it real. I was on this platform that's, you know, kind of clowns people, talks about people, whatever.
Okay.
So I made it there, right? 'Cause
Okay.
you got like Grant Cardone, you got, Andy Ellie, you got Wes Watson, you got
Oh, wow.
my boy Wes, you got quite a bit of few people on there that are heavy hitters, that come on this, and then I made it. And I remember when I made it, I was like, I made it. You know what I mean? And it's a hate thing, but I made it. I was like, let's go. I made it. Like, how much time and effort these people have done and built to get here, and I'm nowhere near that. I mean, I just got back in the space last year, right, in the social media world, and I'm like, to make it, that was huge. But
Definitely.
what I was trying to really tell you is that just the other day, I told you I did a podcast with Carlton Dennis.
Okay,
right?
yes.
Amazing individual and cool cat. And so look, when we did that, like recently we collabed on something, and that same platform came from making fun and all that to liking it, to you know what I mean, to enjoying the information. And I mean, it just goes to show, like, as long as you continue to show up for yourself. I ain't doing it for nobody else.
100%.
So, you're going to convert the haters into lovers. Some way or another. They're going to hate you forever because they hate themselves, or they're going to end up turning and realizing that you're real. You're not. They're going to have
to, man, because they're like, man, this guy is still here. Despite everything, the market has risen, it's collapsed, people are dismantling. You're still here. You have to be somebody special.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
That's legacy, bro. That's
100%,
legacy. And that's
man.
what we can show our boys, right?
Yeah.
And our kids. I mean, I have a daughter as well, but just our kids in general, we can show them. I'm a blended family. I have daughters.
Definitely.
I have them to like show them, like, look, just continue to show up.
You have to,
That's
man.
it. Continue to show up, and then, like, it's so important. My daughter, who is 27, is like, I remember when she's gonna graduate this year from her master's, but she went to a school that's like a Baptist, local Baptist school, university here, and I'm not gonna say the name. Obviously, it's my daughter, her protection, but having her go there, and she was like, Dad, they made me do this thing at the moment. She's a psychology major, and she's like, they made me do this thing for like how I feel about God and, and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, it makes sense. It's Baptist, so it says it in the name.
Right.
I'm sure I said, that's good. But at that time, she was still kind of like, not really spiritually there. So she was just like, yeah, she was broken spiritually. That's the truth. And so to see her and have the recent conversation with her now, about to get her master's, and who she's become.
Powerful,
it's like,
man.
It's like all I could do is continue to be me and show up.
Right.
But what she sees around her, and God was going to touch her heart, and her name, and the meaning of both of her names, are flower from heaven, gift from God. Like that's like, because I always received that, and so to every single one of my kids, their names means something, spiritually, and so just to see that from her,
definitely,
and see, like, she basically like lift me up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That's legacy, man.
That's
legacy,
what it's about, bro.
That like, to see that change and just be that. I'm like, because like you just said, not only your significant other, but just if you don't have a significant other, your children watch what you're doing. Yeah. They might not listen to you and pay attention to you every single time you tell them to do something,
or even just your namesake.
You know what I mean?
Just your namesake,
man.
man.
Do something that you don't even do.
Yeah, I mean, you got nieces, nephews, like cousins. Sometimes they are looking at you. They may not say anything, but they're watching, and you're their inspiration sometimes.
Yeah, I have a nephew that I hold very dear, and I mean, obviously my niece, everybody, but my nephew who's a pastor, who was ordained, and I remember being there, and I got, in tears. God touched my heart at that moment, because I'm like, man, I can't believe, like, he would talk to me and he want to quit. He didn't want to quit. Like, I don't want to do this, and I'm like, God has a plan for you. Like, you can't, like, just understand, like, you're meant for this. You were made for this, right? Definitely. And he became that. And when I heard him talk and speak that day, I'm like, it was so powerful for me. And I'm just like, God, you don't ever stop showing me your presence. Like, you show me that you're here. Like, I had no idea that I had an impact in him this way. So we wouldn't talk like that. We were talking about crazy other stuff. We were just like having fun. And so and then he would talk to me about those things, and I never, like, to see him and the man that he's become and that he's becoming, because now he's going to be becoming a father soon. Like, I just, I'm very grateful to God to allow me to see these moments and to be able to have that,
So, fellas, get y'all stuff together. They watching.
They're watching.
The people are watching you, man.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely,
Hey,
man.
this episode is only the beginning of what we continue to do.
Definitely.
Me and Will got something together that we're doing and trying to help entrepreneurs out there. And man, it's the sky's the limit. That's all it is.
100%.
Appreciate
No,
you, brother.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, bro.